I know it sounds crazy to say that Michael Jordan, probably one of the best athletes to ever walk the planet, has low self esteem, a guy who made every final second shot. But I'm going to show you why it's true and why it's not to disparage him. It's actually wonderful because it's going to help all of us admit that it's something we all struggle with, even the greatest athletes and people on the planet. And when we know this, it can really turn things around for all of us. So if you saw The Last Dance, the 10-part series on the Chicago Bulls, I think it was episode 2, he talks about his childhood with his father and how his father just shamed him, like horrifically shamed him, told him he had no worth, he'd never amount to anything. I mean, just awful. It was absolutely awful. Well, that became the driver for Michael to go, I'm going to be something. And so he worked his tail off and succeeded immensely. Obviously, he accomplished tremendous heights as an athlete. But if you watch, I think it's episode 8, he breaks down crying and actually stops the interview. And what they're talking about is they brought up how hard he drove his teammates and how rough he was, and everyone called him a bully. Well, what he was upset about is society never accepted him. And so there are two things going on, and this is where it can really benefit you. The first thing is do you see, even after accomplishing such great heights, he was still looking for external validation. He needed the world to validate that the way he treated his players, his teammates, was okay. And see, in that moment, he transferred what went on to him as a child of being shamed and belittled onto the whole world. And so now he needs the world's approval, just like he needed his father's approval. And he can't get it. And so that's a sign of low self-esteem. And so the reason, he was chasing all of this is because he had that original childhood wound of his father being perfectly imperfect. I'm not saying his dad's a bad father, but we don't teach this stuff. And so we shame our kids, and it leaves these tremendous wounds. And now there's a gift in it. That wound drove him to be very successful. But no matter how much success he achieved, the wound is still there. And that's why he breaks down crying and ends the interview. The most accomplished athlete on the world is still tremendously broken and looking for external validation, like the world has now become his father. He could never, even as much as he succeeded, while his father, they got closer, he could never truly heal that wound with his father. His father never truly embraced and was like, I apologize for my imperfections and the way I treated you. And so now he transfers it on to the world, needing the world's approval, and couldn't get it either. And even more so, this is what we all do, because his father shamed him, he shamed his teammates. He treated them just like his father treated him. And so that's how we replay our trauma. Every one of us does it. No one's immune from it. Even the greatest athlete in the world, he's not a bad person. None of us are, but we don't teach this stuff. And so here is this man who's accomplished everything, made billions, and his heart's still broken. And I personally find that heartbreaking. And so think through your life. How are you doing the exact same thing? How are you replaying the messages through your job, your career, whatever your career is, your relationships? How are you still looking for external validation to fill an internal hole that was left by perfectly imperfect parents? We all go through it. But the only secret, or the secret to overcoming it is we all have to go face that. We have to admit it, that that's what's driving us, that's what's hurting us. And until he does that, he won't be at peace. Like, he has everything, but he doesn't have internal peace. That wound is still there. And that's heartbreaking to me. And it's heartbreaking for everybody. And so look through your life and see how the exact same scenario is playing out for you. That's where the solution is if you want self-esteem. And so as a culture, admitting that it's true for all of us, even the most accomplished, none of us are immune from it. It's okay. There's no shame in it. And that it's okay to talk about it and get help for it and work through it and become an expert in it. It's nothing to run away from. And when you do that, then you can reconcile all of those internal demons. You can be at peace. And so when someone criticizes you for the way you treated your teammates, you're like, yeah, it was the best I could do. I went through a really difficult childhood, and I see now that I was just transferring the shame that was placed into me onto my teammates. I would have liked to have done it differently. Now, there were some benefits. We achieved a lot and did a lot of great things. But had I known what I know now about how all this works, I would have been more kind and loving. Or maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I'd have done the same thing because it achieved things, but I'd have a better understanding. And I'd have forgiveness for myself, and I'd have forgiveness for their imperfections as well. And therefore, even if the world doesn't think I was a kind person, I understand that, and I can accept that. That's why they'd say that. That's what you end up with when you do this work, and you look at that truth and accept it. That's a lot, to me, that's a lot more freeing. And so that's my encouragement to you, is to look in your own life and see how the same thing's playing out for you. And if you want true self-esteem, complete sense of, I'm just okay, there's only one way to do it. You have to go back, admit those things, accept them, and heal them. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I hope that helps you. Take care.